Welcome to the Curran. I'm Kevin Sessums, and welcome to our final evening of our Groundbreakers series. It's been part of the Curran under construction. I'd like to thank Carol Shorenstein-Hayes for the opportunity to host this series as part of my job as editor-at-large here and the whole Curran staff, especially our ACE production team headed by Mark Luvano and sound guy Chris Hall, and the lighting designers Chrissy Kinney and Alfred Parrish. I couldn't have done this without them. My first Groundbreakers night was a few months ago with Michael Riedel of the New York Post, who was here in San Francisco to talk about his new book, Razzle Dazzle, which was about the history of Broadway. My second was with Jonathan Groff, who originated the role of Melchior in the musical Spring Awakening and is currently originating the role of King George on Broadway in Hamilton. The third was with opera diva Leah Crocetto, who talked a lot about her dark days working the nightclub circuit in New York City. Last night, I welcomed Courtney Love and Todd Allman, who performed numbers from Allman's pop opera, Kansas City Choir Boy. Tonight, my guest, Oscar and Tony and Golden Globe winner Joel Grey, is a kind of culmination of all that has come before him here. Joel, in his own razzly-dazzly way, is the very personification of Broadway's modern history. He too originated an iconic role in a groundbreaking musical. He had his own dark and frustrating days performing in nightclubs. And like Courtney Love, he's been a bit of an iconoclast. Indeed, his most iconoclastic role, the MC in Cabaret, could be likened to fronting a kind of rock band and all its nihilistic knowing control over an overarching chaos going on in front of him. Joel Grey's MC was in many ways the first punk rocker, but one with a more sinister impulse. His vulgarity was better mannered, finally, than the punkers it precursed, thus more malevolent in its charm. It was Puck, cast as Caliban. Joel, too, is from the Midwest, Cleveland, instead of Kansas City, but believe me, he was no choir boy. This is made abundantly clear in his astonishingly honest and heartfelt new memoir, Master of Ceremonies. The Greek poet Cavafy, whom Joel beautifully portrayed in a series of photographs by Duane Michaels, wrote in his poem, In the Same Space, the setting of houses, cafes, the neighborhood that I've seen and walked through years on end. I created you while I was happy, while I was sad, with so many incidents, so many details. And for me, the whole of you is transformed into feeling. That is what Joel has done in this remarkable book. He has created a you of himself and transformed that you into feeling. Not only happiness and sadness, but a complicated melange of the two that melds with our own versions of it, which is what all great memoirs do, make us see ourselves in them. He can be endearing in this you of him. He can be fraught with fear and desire. This you of him can be even a bit of a shit. And yet we're so touched by his audacity in admitting to being such a shit at times in his life that we are seduced as others were by his shittiness. He can be insecure. He can be a diva. He can be damaged. He can be dangerously talented. He is dangerously talented. The danger of such talent being that it resides in a man who sought safety all his life. Those safe havens were found in the theater and in family, and finally in being what he had always dreamed of being, not only a star, but more important, a husband and a father. And yet, just as Joel Grey's greatest skill is taking his artistic scalpel to a character's subtext and sculpting a performance from it, the subtext of most of his life has been his being a gay man, which he writes about in this book. In many ways, my own life as a gay man began when I first saw the film version of Cabaret in a movie house in Jackson, Mississippi. I was 17 years old. But it wasn't the Michael York character with whom I identified. It was Joel's, that jocosity that masked a profound distrust of whatever it was that was residing inside there, along with that talent inside of him as both a performer and a man. For Joel, the man, that talent incongruously both liberated him and captured him with its power. He became the talent, that you of him, and didn't have to be for a very long time the man he really was. I think that is true of many actors, but especially true of those who live their lives in the closet, as many, alas, have and still do. Moreover, I innately sensed, sitting there in that Southern cinema when I was 17, the sexual subtext in his portrayal of the MC. And in subtle and sometimes overt ways, I've been playing my own version of the MC in my life ever since. I'm even playing a version of it tonight. But maybe we all do in some way as we host our own versions of the lives we truly live. Years later, after having moved to New York from Mississippi, I would see Joel in my friend Larry Kramer's play The Normal Heart, and another iconic role, that of Ned Weeks. He bowled me over once again, not with subterfuge or subtext, but with bravery and dignity. That is what I got from his memoir, too, as he matter-of-factly comes out of the closet and owns his whole life. It is so brave. It is so dignified. Joel powerfully delivered these words as Ned Weeks in Larry's landmark play. I'll never forget their power. The night I saw him in the role, I'll never forget his. I belong to a culture, Joel said as Ned, that includes Proust, Henry James, Tchaikovsky, Cole Porter, Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, Alexander the Great, Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, Christopher Marlowe, Walt Whitman, Herman Melville, Tennessee Williams, Byron, E.M. Forster, Lorca, Francis Bacon, James Baldwin, Henry Stack Sullivan, John Maynard Keynes, Dag Hammarskjöld. These are not invisible men. To this list, I would add our guest tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the visible Joel Grey.
No. Well, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Kevin Sessums. He lies. The reason that I'm talking to you right now when I wasn't supposed to, I was supposed to sit down and let him, lead a proper interview. But I don't like there to be any expectations that are possibly unfulfilled. So I want to take this moment and take care of that. And so I don't have to worry about it, and you don't have to worry it, and we're all here. Willkommen, bienvenue, welcome, Fremde, étranger, stranger, glücklich zu sehen, je suis enchanté, happy to see you, bleib reste stay. Willkommen, bienvenue, welcome im Cabaret, au Cabaret to Cabaret.
Willkommen,
I feel
Mr.
better.
Gray. Good, we do too. Welcome to the Curran. Where you played the Curran, right?
I was fascinated with your talk
No,
about me.
Push the microphone up. Okay.
I was fascinated with what you said I did.
Did you recognize yourself?
No. However, I admired that person.
Oh, you did? Well, I admire.
So
you
I can actually aim that way.
Okay, good. All right, that was my whole point to give you a goal in life.
Thank you, sir.
But you have played the Curran, right? I mean,
4 times.
4 times. Which 4 times?
I love this theater. I'm so excited that it's going to be brought back to its gorgeous glitter. I mean, we need this kind of beauty and theaters that are traditional and that have history. Make whatever's on the stage all that thicker
Right.
and more reverberating.
And,
And this is one of the theaters.
And what were the 4 productions that you were in?
In Cabaret. Oh, Cabaret. Yes, I was in that.
It was
And
Grand Tour. Were you in
the Grand Tour,
Yeah.
right? And Good Time, was it Good Time, Charlie?
Charlie.
No, George M.
George M. was here.
Yes.
Cool. Okay. And were you in the production of Wicked that was here, or did you do that just
No,
in
no,
New
no.
York? Oh, so they improved it in New York and hired you.
Well, you could say that.
Okay. All right. And what are your memories of San Francisco, other than the Curran? I know you played the Venetian Room.
Well, I played the Venetian Room, I think, maybe more times than I ever played any place in my life.
Shut your mouth. Really? Really? Wow.
And I checked into the room today,
Mm-hmm.
and I saw right on the night table a photograph of myself saying, "Now playing," in the Venetian Room. Joel Grey held over.
Where did that come from?
I was going to bring it over here tonight.
What years were you?
I
were
think
you there?
that was in like 72 and 3.
Mhm. And you know, they still have shows there. I
Yeah,
saw
but
Cheetah. Not Joel Grey. They
No,
had
no,
Cheetah.
no.
I saw Cheetah there. It was amazing.
It was so much fun.
Yeah, it was and you also, I read in your book that you came here for the first screening of Cabaret
That's true. Before anybody saw it.
before anybody. Yeah. Yeah. And you were very nervous about that first screening.
Well, everybody was.
But you were nervous because the first cut you had seen, they practically cut you out of it.
That's true. That was true. I think Bob Fosse, as great a filmmaker as he is and was, wanted to no longer do musicals.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he was hopefully going to tell this story, which was so dark, with very much less musical numbers, so that the drama would be the centerpiece. And he did a cut, which is like the first time they put together the movie. And we were invited to see it, and there were beginnings and ends of numbers, and they were all chopped up. Nothing ever finished. Nothing ever got applause because there was no endings. But he thought he would just use it as like little, moments to give it a little musical something. And I was pretty upset. And I called the producer. He said, "Don't worry, I saw it last night." He says, "It'll never be seen like that."
And it never was again.
And it never was again.
But you and Fosse had a very complicated relationship. I read in the book, he didn't want you originally. Would you like to tell them who you heard he wanted to cast as the MC?
Kevin Sessums.
And I turned it down. I am that old. Yeah. I turned it down. No, it was Ruth Gordon.
Yeah, she was rumored.
Right. Yeah.
And Anthony Newley was
Right.
rumored.
Mhm.
My secret suspicion was that he was hoping that it would be impossible to find someone and that he would end up doing it.
Oh wow, that's
He was a
interesting.
great performer,
Right.
and he was also came up through burlesque. So he had a very dark background. And I suspect that he really thought he could do that.
That's interesting.
And let me tell you about when he started to work with me, because it was 6 weeks before Munich, and he came in to an office full of producers and all the money people, and he said to everybody, "Ladies and gentlemen, this is the moment of truth. It's either Joel Grey or me." And Marty Baum, who was the producer, said, "Then it's Joel Grey."
Wow.
I don't think that's ever happened before. Because in Hollywood, the director is king.
Right. Or Queen.
Cheap.
That's a cheap laugh. I know.
That
It's a
was
cheap
cheap.
laugh. It's vaudeville.
All right.
We're like an old vaudeville team.
Anyway, so he was stuck with me, and I was stuck with him.
Right.
And I think that the tension between us added to the film.
You were the only original cast member in.
He wanted
in the-
nothing to do with what
Right.
was on the stage.
Mm.
And
Well,
that's kind of fair.
Right.
But the very first day I got to Munich, he was rehearsing two ladies with his assistants. And he said to John Sharp, he said, "Come over here for a minute. Joel, have you ever done a backflip?" No. But show me, and maybe I can. He said, "Johnny, come here. Stand back here." And he proceeded to jump and do a backflip and missed and fell right on his face and laid there for, I think, what seemed like an eternity, maybe 5 minutes. And the nurses and the doctors came and they took him off. And we were starting shooting, rehearsal the next day. And we all thought, well, this could be the end of the beginning. And the next day I saw him at the rehearsal with this black half of a face
Wow.
and a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. His famous cigarette.
Right.
And it was never, ever discussed.
Were you secretly a little like pleased that?
No,
it
I
happened?
wasn't.
No. Okay. I don't know. I mean, there was a lot of tension.
you probably know.
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of tension between the.
But not
between the
that.
two. Okay.
I mean, he was an artist.
Right. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, yes. I mean, he got a performance out of it. He didn't like improvisation. He didn't like. He liked things set. Right. I mean,
Yeah,
yes.
and everything to counts.
Right.
And
you
I
bucked against
I
that.
felt that was wrong for the piece.
Right.
And I had as much an investment
Right.
in that movie as he did.
Right.
Right?
Right. You're one of 8 people, I think 8 or 9 people who have won an Oscar and a Tony for the same role in the history of show business, right? So you did have an investment. Yeah. You were when you were up against 3, and for the Oscar, you were up against 3 actors from The Godfather,
But only one was certain to win.
Pacino.
Al
Pacino,
Pacino,
right.
because it was a perfect performance,
Right.
and it was a non-musical movie, and Hollywood sort of looks down on musicals,
Right.
so it was common knowledge that he was going to win, and so I was sitting there with my wife and having a fine time. I didn't expect it, and Diana Ross said, "And the winner is." Joel Grey. And I jumped up, and that was all there was.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Very good.
Made me happy.
I always thought Eddie Albert was going to win
I know you did.
because he was the other one. I looked up who you were nominated against for the Tony. What happened to these people? Leon Bibb, Gordon Dilworth, and Edwin Winter from
Cabaret.
Yeah. So you did beat those three. I've never heard of those three. Although Edwin Winter was in the TV version of MASH, I think. I think he was. I'm not sure, but I think so.
He's a very good actor.
Yeah.
He played the Nazi Ernst.
Right, exactly. But the Lotte Lenya was nominated for lead actress that year instead of supporting actress, and Jack Guilford was the lead actor. Harris Schultz, right? Which seemed like supporting parts now to us. When they redid Cabaret, did they ever offer you the part of Harris Schultz?
Yes.
Yes. Has anyone? And
Go screw yourselves. Why would I do that?
yeah, exactly. Well, maybe I can see the argument for you doing it. You wouldn't. You don't want to. It would be sort of gimmicky.
No, it just wasn't interesting.
Yeah, it was. And what did you think of that? Of the big success that it's had since?
It's a great show.
Yeah.
It should be done all the time.
Okay.
What it has to say about the human condition is a necessary message.
Right. And what was your take on Alan Cummings?
I liked them very much. But it was such a different take on the whole show.
Right.
And the thing that there's one little part of it that bothers me, and I remember them saying that it was much more daring than our version.
But the time during '66, your version was very daring.
It was shocking.
Right.
I mean, girls were hanging off the stage in garters and belts, and I mean, it was really lewd. But they forget.
Right. Yeah. But in the book, you talk about how you didn't think you could get this. I mean, once you were cast, you didn't even have to audition for it. How he just gave you the part. He called you and said, "Jolie, it's yours." Like one of the few people who call you Jolie. And then you got the part, and you were sort of lost in it until you had an epiphany about how to play it. And what was that epiphany?
Well, there was no indication except that he was painted and I think much more transvestite in what Hal saw in Stuttgart. And he was also a midget. I don't think I liked that. However, there was nothing. There were no lines.
Right.
There was no description. And I thought, who is this man? If I can't know who he is, how can I play him? And how can I play him as the demonic betrayer that he was if I don't know something about the man? And I remembered that when I was working in nightclubs, I went to a club in St. Louis, and there was one of the worst comedians I'd ever seen. Cheap. He curried favor from the audience. He was sweating all over them, and he was just showing them how hard he was working, and the audience loved him. And I thought, what is that? What is that? And I thought, I think I'm going to, maybe that's a clue for me to the internal person this is. And so I said to Hal at the last rehearsal, I have an idea, I'd like to try something. And he said, okay. And he went to the house to take notes and so forth. And I played the entire opening number like this horrible man in St. Louis. And when the number was over, I remembered running backstage, way back behind a flat, hiding, thinking, oh my God, they're going to think that's me. They're going to think that's who I am. This is the end of my career on Broadway. That's just beginning.
Right. Your dream.
And I stood there, and I was really, really upset. and there was a tap on the back of my shoulder, and it was Hal. And he said, "Jolie, that's it."
Yeah.
And that's how it got born.
Were you?
And he only got worse.
Well, obviously there was something inside you that you could access that, right? So, were you afraid that they would think that was you, or you were afraid that you would think that was you?
No, I knew.
You knew what?
I knew that that was not me.
Not me. Okay. All right.
It was what I observed
Right. It was the
as an actor.
Okay. All right. All right. And what I found interesting in the book is when you discovered the look of the character at home, you were playing around at home, and you were using your wife's makeup, your wife's used eyelashes, so that the MC, the look of the MC almost comes from your ex-wife in a strange way, which was a total
It was
surprise
great.
to me. I know, but that's not what I was expecting. I thought it was like a makeup person at the theater would have
No.
helped you with this, but you were sitting at home.
There didn't
with your
used to be
wife's-
makeup persons.
Oh, there weren't. Okay.
No actors
Okay.
needed to know about makeup.
Right.
And she was in summer stock, and she had these lashes that had so much mascara on them, they were like pieces of cardboard. And I put them on, and they went like a marionette, like a puppet
Right.
size.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's something unusual.
Right.
And it just kind of grew from that.
What would your psychoanalyst say that it was your wife's makeup and eyelashes that
He would say nothing, only you would say something. Shame on you.
I think it's interesting. You became your wife to play the MC. I think it's interesting. Okay. But let's go back to Cleveland, okay? Let's go back to Cleveland, where it all started. All right? Let's go back. You grew up in Cleveland. I mean, you're this Midwest little Jewish kid in the Midwest, in the breadbasket of the Midwest. Talk about your life a bit there. I mean, your father was in show business. You
Yep.
grew up in theaters. You grew up around show business. This has been
No,
your
no,
life.
no. My father was a musician.
Right. But that's show
And-
business in a way. Right?
Not
He was
really.
involved- Okay. All right.
He was a serious musician.
Right.
And I didn't want to play instruments, or I had no interest in it. My mother took me to the theater one day, and I sat out there, and I looked up, and I saw these kids in a children's production. And I remember seeing that and saying to my mother, I want to do that. And that was it. And I never left that idea.
Right. But you used to hang out with your father at the RKO Palace when he was in the orchestra, and you would see the acts that came through.
Yes, he had to play for vaudeville too.
Right, yeah. So that's show business. Vaudeville's show business. I'm not going to be corrected here. I know he was in show business in a way.
No, wait a minute. No, you're absolutely right.
I'm playing with you. So, but I'm curious if that little kid who would sit under, like down beneath the stage you write in the book and watch like these great acts. Like your father even played some like vaudevillian scenes with Jean Harlow.
I never saw it, but I
Right,
remember
like he was the
hearing about it.
cuckolded husband or
Yeah.
lover or
Yeah,
something.
he was a funny guy.
Right. But then you got your first real part at the Cleveland Playhouse, right?
Yep.
As Pud in on Borrowed Time.
In a great play,
Right.
and I had a lot of responsibility.
And you were how old?
9,
9. Wow.
and I was the happiest I'd ever been,
Ever?
ever.
So all the times you've tried to be happy in life has been to get back to that 9-year-old in a Paul Osborne play.
In a way,
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
used,
Mhm.
respected,
Mm-hmm.
valuable.
Innocent? Were you ever innocent?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Not for long.
Yeah, I don't. I've read the book. I know. I mean, I guess we can start talking about some of this now. We've talked for 20 minutes. You do talk about when you were 10 years old, your first affair in a way. You were 10. I mean, it wasn't a affair. I mean, that's the way it comes across in the book. You were 10 with the
Well, that's a dream.
well, that's the way you described it. With the 16-year-old
But
elevator.
if a 10-year-old is dreaming,
Oh, I thought that was real. It seemed real to me. He was dreaming of that?
no, but when a 10-year-old is experiencing something,
Okay.
it's quite different
Okay.
from a mature person.
Right, okay. But there was a real experience.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah, okay.
But
Yeah.
so many guys do that
Yeah, but
at a very, very young age. But that wasn't my circumstance.
Right.
I did it because there was something there in me.
Right.
And I found out very early on that that was a bad thing to do and a bad thing to be.
Right.
I kept hearing
Well,
about
this was like 1943, 42?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
that men were taken into, the police picked them up, and there was a tremendous amount of vehemence and anti-homosexuality, and you could die, and you certainly could not have any respect, and nobody would, think much of you because these terrible ideas about sexuality at that moment, and that's what I was hearing.
Right. And yet you still acted upon it because it was innately part of you. There was an. I mean, you write about it in the book very openly and matter-of-factly and sort of beautifully. When you're a young person, you have this experience when you're 10. Then at the Cleveland Playhouse, when you're 12, I guess, so you're around 12. There's an older guy there who's about 17, 18, maybe, and you seem to be in love with him.
I think I was.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when you read that at first,
I may still be.
I mean, I think in a way we always try to find our first love over and over and over, right? I mean, I know the first guy I was ever in love with in high school. That's who I dream about still in my real dreams. I dream about him at times, and I do try
I'm
to.
sorry.
No, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's as close as I get to love. But this is not about me. It's about you.
But during that time, I was also very interested in girls and women, and I was just very, very busy.
Right. You were busy. You were a little coxman, just to be honest. I mean, you were busy. You were very.
I like that.
You were good at it. Yeah. Busy. He's busy in this book. Buy this book. We've got 28 books for sale afterwards. So buy one of them. Yeah, but when you read that about the Cleveland Playhouse and that relationship that you had, at first you're sort of moved by it and it seems sweet, but then you go, well, this guy's sort of age and you're not of age, and it's almost like a felony. So it's an odd feeling you get when you read it. Like, it's like, were you taking advantage of?
Yes.
You were 12.
However, I wasn't,
Yeah.
because people don't ever believe that young people can have very deep feelings.
Right. Yeah. It's. I mean, I was moved and troubled at the same time. I will admit.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. When I read that part of it, but then you, from the Cleveland Playhouse, your father gets hired by Spike Jones.
Right.
Okay.
He was the one who went.
Yeah.
He was the glugger.
Right. One of the things you have in common with the Curran, I meant to bring this up, was there is your father's manager, Hal Zeiger.
Right.
Right. He was Lenny Bruce's manager or producer, and he booked Lenny Bruce into the Curran. He was the guy who
You do your work.
I do. He produced Lenny Bruce on the stage of the Curran.
Yeah.
So everything connects.
He also was involved with Ray Charles for many years.
Yeah. And but he was a childhood friend of your father's,
Yeah.
right? And very protective of him and ran his career. But your father went out there, became successful with Spike Jones, and then had his own sort of
one day
success with the Borscht.
One day, my dad was
His name
at
is
a
Mickey
recording.
Katz.
Mickey Katz was my father, yes. And one day he was at a recording session. He was one of the musicians in Spike's band. And he always loved to write parodies. And so they had taken a break, and he was in the auditorium with this one guy, and he said, "I just wrote this thing. What do you think about it?" And he just liked doing it. And he said, "Oi, get mir heim mit der Weibele Schein, wo de Schiebs und de Ziegelach leifen. Oi, get mir a Haus mit gesunde Cowboys und a couple hundred cattle zu verkaufen." Now you can all sing. Heim, heim offen. Okay, so here's what happened. Here's what happened. It turns out that in the control booth, the mic was open. And there were 3 or 4 heads of RCA Victor, all Gentile, not hearing, not understanding a word, but doubled over with laughter. And they signed him. And it became a gigantic hit that was played all over the country. And it led to like maybe 15 albums of Mickey Katz.
And he had the borscht.
Borschtcapades was the
Borschtcapades.
outgrowth.
Right, yeah.
That was not people skating on borscht. No.
But it was every week in Beverly Hills or Hancock Park?
The Wilshire Ebell Theater.
Okay, and it was always packed, always sold out.
Yeah.
All in Yiddish?
Yep. No. It was all mixed.
Oh, it was mixed, okay. All right, but a big part of it was...
And I had nothing to do. I mean, when I left the Cleveland Playhouse, I was really lost.
You were washed up at 12?
No, but I had nothing to, no
Okay.
place to act.
Right.
And I needed to act.
Right.
So I asked my dad if I could be in the show. He said, "Well, what would you do?" And I said, "I don't know. I don't sing and I don't dance," and I didn't.
Right.
And I don't speak Yiddish. But I feel like I want to be on stage because everybody looked like they were having such a great time. So my aunt taught me a Yiddish song that's so difficult, so fast, so wild. It's called Romania, Romania. I didn't know what I was saying, but I said it fast, and I was a hit. Didn't know what I was doing.
And you were a teenager?
16.
16.
Yeah. And then Eddie Cantor saw me in that show and put me on television, and that was the end of my borschtcapades.